Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Hey, my name is Clark Turner.
And I'm Jared Flo.
And welcome to Contractor Cuts. We are covering today all about hiring. Today is who to hire, right? We've covered when are you ready to hire? How do you know you're ready? How do you prepare for the hire? We've covered kind of the theory of hiring, what you're looking for. Today, we're covering who to hire. Next week, we're covering the final week, which is
how to hire.
The interview process. Really, how do you bring them in? How do you do all that? So that's going to be a good one next week. It's going to be probably a little longer just because there's so much detail to go with. So this week, who to hire. Jared, tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, who to hire is really important because if I'm going to go to interview somebody, I need to know what I'm interviewing for. What job are they going to be doing? What skills do they need? Or do they need to be great at customer service? Do they need to be really detail oriented? And it really all depends on the job that they're going to be running.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that we say is it needs to start with an org chart. Org chart out your company, where it is today, where you want to go, and then that's going to detail out to you the different job positions you need, whether it's a project manager, a assistant on site, an estimator, an office manager, whatever it is, whatever that job position that's going to be your next hire, you need to understand who that person is going to be, so that you can interview the correct people.
Yep. So. And so, with what you just said, an org chart, which people are like, okay, what's that mean?
Right.
Last week we talked about blueprinting out the next 6 to 12 months of your company, thinking about when is this hire going to go. An org chart is pretty much a drawing of that. And what we do with anyone joining ProServe Alliance, we'll sit down and do a blueprint with them. Part of coming into the Alliance is we help you do the org chart and the blueprinting. Right. But with what you're saying, is absolutely right. Most contractors, when they say who to hire, they say, I want a guy that can renovate homes. Like I want a guy that can come in and run some crews and make me some money and make my clients happy.
Do what I do.
Do what I do. Come in here. If I can find a duplication of myself as close to that as possible, that's who I'm going to hire. And it's usually the guy closest to you that can put 2 and 2 together and make 4. That way he's good enough to come out and run. Let's go, right? The hungriest guy around me is going to get the job as a normal contractor hires.
Right.
So that's what we're covering today, who to hire. Let's go through. Any contractor listening is going to let's walk through from the guy who's out there swinging a hammer still leading a crew all the way through a company like our general contracting company that's hired 10th, 11th, 12th, 15th employee down the road. Let's go through who, right, personality-wise, what type of person you're looking for in each of those
based
phases.
On the different levels and whether it's 1099 or W-2s and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's start at the very beginning. If you are a contractor out there renovating homes yourself, you've been running a crew, you've been renovating a home, you've been painting properties.
Swinging hammers.
Yeah, and you're starting to bring on a second crew and you're trying to split time between jobs. Jared, how do you know and how do you start thinking about that first hire?
Well, that first hire is somebody that, obviously you're looking to be able to come on and take on some more bandwidth to be able to expand and allow you to get off of site and be able to be moving towards more of a project management role and somebody that can come in and take over on-site decisions, running the jobs and moving towards that growth. But that person is at the very beginning is going to be a person that is swinging hammers, has those types of skills, and maybe a person that has the type of skills that could be groomed into the number 2 in a company as you grow. Or maybe you're just looking at this time for somebody to just help increase the bandwidth of you and what you do so that you can cover some more ground.
Yeah, that's right. And so when you're out there doing that, going 1099 is a subcontractor, someone that you're just paying money. You send them a 1099 doc at the end of the year.
They handle their own taxes.
They handle all that. You don't have to have all of the setup above them. A W-2 employee is my employee. They file, they pay their unemployment taxes. Everything is pulled out of their paycheck. They're usually on a set paycheck.
They're covered under your insurance.
Under your insurance and your vehicle and your, all of that stuff to where it's a bigger expense. And so getting started, you're the guy out there with your first hire. oftentimes you want to start with a with a 1099 who's a crew leader and saying, listen, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to put this carrot out there. This is where we're going over the next 12 months. I need someone who's going to be my number 2. I want that to be you. Now, you got to prove it. You got to earn it. And you're going to come in. I'm going to give you a salary eventually. Maybe there's a chance for ownership share, which we'll talk about in a second. But I want you to come into the company if you can earn it. So they usually will start as a crew leader, running jobs and being your point person on this job. And so when you're on the second and third job running these crews, you have your one key guy over here running this. He's still 1099. He's still sub of yours.
Yep.
But you're really starting to really hone in if he's got the skill set.
Yeah, and you're shifting as that person starts to prove themselves. You're shifting responsibility to them.
Yep.
To see how they handle it, how they handle the ball of responsibility. Do they have the gumption to make sure everything's getting done? And you can kind of do that slowly as you've got a 1099.
One job at a time. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's that first one. And once you say, okay, this guy's it. He's with me long term. He's been here for 6 months, and he is killing it on every single job site. He's bought into our future goal. Again, part of setting up that blueprint is it's a sales tool for employees that want to come work for you. If I'm like, hey, Jared, I want to hire you. Can you come work for me? Versus, hey, Jared, this is my 12-month goal in 5 years. I'm going to have you making 6 figures, and this is how we're going to get you there. First, I'm going to have you as our project manager. You're going to grow with me and become my head of renovations, where I'll put project managers underneath you.
Well, and people will follow that.
Yes.
People can, if you can lay out a vision for them, they're more willing to come in and say, yeah, I'm on board for that. I want that vision. And if you can roll that vision out for them, it's something that they'll jump on and run for.
So that goes right into where I was when I hired you, right? I was not swinging a hammer unless absolutely things went south and I needed to paint a wall somewhere. Other than that, I was running probably 4 or 5 crews at a time, probably had 6, 7 projects going at a time, maybe more than that. I don't recall exactly, but I was ramping up, managing these jobs, right? I went from a hammer swinging contractor to a general contractor, project managing all of these different projects with my different crews. The product stopped becoming me swinging a hammer, me creating the product, and it became the service that I was helping provide to the clients, right? And so when I got to that spot, when I kept growing to that spot, that's where I said, okay, I can now bring Jared in or bring a hire in, bring them in as a W-2, and we're both going to be sitting in this project manager role side by side, and eventually kind of tilt the weights onto Jared from
Indiana
me.
Jones.
The very slowly handoff as we were bringing in more people that I can continue to take, right? So in that spot, who am I looking for? Who's the hire, right? What should we be looking for that hire?
Well, in that hire, the intent is somebody who can, again, similar to the 1099, but more focused this direction. Somebody that can very quickly start taking on and understanding the processes of what you've created, how you're delivering that customer service to people, and start adapting that and becoming that, and start delivering that on their own with not as much management. Yeah. That's the baseline goal of that person. But the secondary one is, if you're looking at your org chart and you're thinking, okay, this guy, as we grow, I'm going to need a head of department, or I'm going to need a general manager, or I'm going to, whatever it is. This person, I think, can be groomed to be that. Well, I have to know that a head of department needs to have leadership skills. They have to have people skills. They have to have sales ability to talk with clients and do sales. And so identifying some of those skills in a person when you're making that hire, you need them for the immediate need, the immediate need to start growing the company. But you also need to identify, do they have these additional skills that'll be helpful for the immediate need, but are vital for the growth into this secondary position that you may say, all right, if you do this, I'm willing to give some ownership to you if you get to this level, or some form of a departmental profit share, or whatever it is, for that person to have the incentive to grow. But they also have to have the skills to be able to sit in those positions you want them to get to.
So looking into what skills you're looking for, right? We're talking about the type of skills that they need for that. We usually identify contractors who come to us in two different forms. There's two different types that camps that you usually fall into. One, you're either this entrepreneurial visionary who's got some grind behind them, right? I can see this vision. I want to grow this thing. I really don't know the business side, but I want to get it done. I know where we can go. I like systems. I just need help implementing them. Or you're the other side where you're a grinder, where you have gone into every single house yourself. Every homeowner loves you and knows you, and you are the first one on job site, last one there, and you've grown this thing of I just need more of me because everybody wants me, but you don't really have the vision side. Maybe you think, yeah, I could grow this into something big, but you don't have that visionary on your team, right? And so the goal is, your first hire, you don't want to hire the exact same person as
That's
you,
right?
right?
That's right.
And it's counterintuitive because you're like, well, I'm trying to duplicate myself. Not with the first
Not
hire.
with that guy.
First hire, you're trying to complement yourself. You're trying to find someone. Going back to our example, I am a visionary. Shoot first, aim later. I gotta go. Let's grow this. Let's grow. Yeah, we need systems in place. Here's a good enough system. Run it. Let's go. Right?
Yeah.
And so when I brought you in, you were more, okay, let's pump the brakes. Let's figure this out. I don't know if we should spend that money. Let's slow things down. Right.
Let's get this process dialed in before we roll it out is perfect.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm like, let's roll it out and it will be perfect when it's finished. And right. And so it was a good compliment in terms of we could sit and argue our sides and come up to a good conclusion where we really complement each other. So I think, the title of this episode is Jared versus Jared. Our first hire, Jared, versus our last hire that we made 5 months ago was a guy named Jared. And so I think on the front end of it, the first Jared hire, the first hire that you're trying to make is a person that's going to complement you, that has entrepreneurial mindset, that can see the growth of a company. I don't want to hire just a grinder. I don't want to hire just an entrepreneur. I need someone who can get their hands dirty, can get going, but also can see the vision and buy into that vision and help build on that vision.
Well, and I think one of the things that's been really great with you and I is that if you hired the Jared, right, the first hire that was very, very similar to you, like-minded, same skill sets, same abilities, I think that you would have. There's an inevitable place that you get to that you would miss that other perspective that might create some clarity. Yeah. And I think that's what's been great with you and I is that you have an idea, you have a thought or direction, and you come to me, and because we're different but trying to go to the same goal, a lot of times there is a perspective and clarity because we get to bounce it off of each other. Yep. And a lot of that ends up in like, oh yeah, there it is. That's the idea. I was over here, but now that we've kind of gotten the other perspective from somebody who's got a different skill set, a more of a pump the brakes, let's look at it from this angle, versus somebody who's just like you, who's on the same angle, said, hey, run it, let's go.
Yep.
So I think that's been some of the benefit of that balance.
Yeah, I think that's key. And I think your very first hire, you couldn't have come in here without any knowledge of construction.
Correct.
Right? That's we talk about that a lot in some of the videos. Is we like to hire guys that don't have a ton of construction knowledge. For the very first hire,
a blank slate.
For the very first hire, you got to have some sort of abilities. You got to have some sort of knowledge. But more importantly, out of anything, it's the personality that I'm hiring. It's the customer service side that I'm hiring, which that's across the board. That's every hire that we make is that stuff. But for the first hire, entrepreneurial, right? We'll talk next week a little bit more about setting up pay structures, pay scales for the first hire versus the last hire. Right. The ability to earn ownership or profit share in the company and all that sort of thing can be worked out. And really that's kind of some of our courses that we have in ProServe Alliance, kind of diving deeper into the pay structure and how to pay people. But I digress. Going into the first hire, second hire, right? The second hire, me and you were running it. It was another project manager who's actually running our general contracting company now. But we brought him in as he had some experience in commercial. But really, it was the first of our new way of hiring. It was, you're going to come in as a project manager. You're going to have a set salary. You're going to have a way to increase your salary every 6 months. And year over year, we're going to increase you depending on performance.
Right.
And so
we also had identified at that point the the need for intense detail.
Yeah.
You had to be very, very detail oriented to be able to do these jobs well.
Yep.
And that's how we ended up with our current or that hire.
Yeah.
He was extremely detailed.
Yep. Yeah. And he was great. I mean, he didn't know residential construction very well, but he had some experience in construction. So.
But he was the type of person that when he went home at night, he was doing a project.
Mm-hmm.
He was building something.
Mm-hmm.
He was painting his house. He was going out and do it like he wasn't going home and sitting behind the TV all day.
Yep.
He was a natural doer.
Yeah.
He enjoyed doing projects and being busy, and he had that. It was an indication that he had gumption.
Yep.
Which was huge for us.
Yes, because we couldn't motivate him. When you're that early on and you're doing everything, I can't hire someone that I've got to motivate.
Right.
And that's across the board everywhere, but it's so important those first couple hires because, I couldn't come in and be like, Jared, I need you to work harder. If you couldn't work hard, you're gone.
Well, and I mean, early on, one of the biggest reasons for that is that there's not a huge financial runway.
Yeah.
That's, you mentioned earlier that I had to have at least a relative working knowledge of construction.
Yeah.
It's because you needed me to get to work.
Right.
To start earning money, quickly, not so quickly that we were setting each other up for failure.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a huge financial runway, so that's where the first hires are really, really important.
Yeah.
To make sure that they do have some of those abilities, because you don't have a coffer full
4 months of
of cash to burn on a person.
Yep. So let's fast forward through some of our hires and let's go kind of to our last hire, the last Jared that we hired.
Jared number 2.
Yep. So that was a hire that was really outside of the box, honestly, and especially for construction. Not as much for us. We've kind of made that hire before, but the reason it was different is because we had a bunch of interviews and we narrowed it down to 2 guys. One guy was a project manager for another general contracting company. He had crews. He knew how to run jobs. He was fully
Obvious
skilled.
applicable skills.
Yep, and he had a good personality. He was probably a little less people friendly than and a little more of a harder edge, but had the ability to really could have stepped in day one and started at least understanding what we're talking about, and by month 2, 3, probably starting to show value.
Well, and as a business owner, that's a type of person that it's natural to just kind of lick your chops over and be like, this guy can earn money very quickly.
Yeah, and
it's attractive.
4 years ago, he would have been
100%.
No doubt our first hire.
Yeah.
But the second person we narrowed it down to was Jared.
Yeah.
And Jared comes from a corporate support side of things.
High level customer service.
Not really any professional experience in construction. Some experience outside of that, but for the most part, we had zero education on the back end for construction.
But he also some of the things that he did have, the skills that he brought to the table was are things that we couldn't train or teach.
Yeah.
He had the ability to connect with people. He had the ability to talk and communicate and engage with people. He makes people feel welcome around him. And when you're talking about being in a homeowner's house, doing a renovation and kind of helping forecast for the client the excitement and making those connections and some of that type of customer service level things and the ability to kind of naturally put yourself in a customer's shoes and think how they might be experiencing things. Some people have to work towards that. He had all of those things very, very naturally, and was a very important skill that we were looking for.
I remembered in that interview sitting in on it, and someone asked him a question about, and again, when we do interviews, and we'll talk about this next week, we have 4, 5, 6 people interview the person because we want every take on it. We don't want just the one person who's hiring them who's usually the most desperate person in the room, and they're going to say yes to anybody because they need a warm body to help us.
Which has been you and I quite a few times.
Yes. And so one of the people in the room asked him the question about experience. He took a second. He answered thoroughly about his lack of experience, but why that was okay and like what he did know. And then he stopped and looked at the person who asked him the question and said, "Did I answer your question?" Like, let me make sure that I got this. And that in and of itself was, okay, he understands that he needs to connect with that person and answer all of their question before moving on to the next thing.
I actually remember that too.
So I think that was some of it with us. The downside of hiring someone like that is when they come into this world, when they come into the construction world and they're running crews that have been doing this for 25 years, is they can easily lose, and I'm not talking about Jared, I'm just saying anyone without experience can easily lose confidence in themselves because they feel like they don't know what they're doing.
Well, and everywhere you turn, it seems like everybody knows more than you do.
Yes. And so one of the big keys that we try to have is the person running our company, our general manager, is in charge of making sure that person understands, hey, listen, it's okay that you don't know this. Ask the questions. Google it. Let's figure it out. I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you. And that's why we don't make a hire more than every 3 to 5 months, because we want our general manager who's training that hire to focus on that person, on growing them and challenging them and letting them fly a little bit and maybe get hurt and fall and then help him pick them up and say, okay, learn from your mistakes. Let's keep going. We're okay with mistakes. We're okay with you making a decision that was wrong, as long as there was forward movement and learning from that decision, right? Yep. I made that decision, probably not the best decision in hindsight. Now that I got that experience, don't make that decision wrong again next time, right? And so that's one of the big things of who you're hiring. Can you hire someone that can get that confidence in themselves, that can say, you know what, I don't know this, I'm here to learn it. I'm going to do research. I'm going to get books. I'm going to learn this job. And then I'm going to have the wherewithal to look at a client and be able to respond in a way accordingly that doesn't break their trust, but be able to get them the answer later and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the Jared to Jared connection. The first end for the back end, you need way more experience on the front end, I would say. But really, you're going to want to hire quickly for that first person. You got to take your time and interview everybody. Yep. You've got to find the right person ethically, morally, in line with you in terms of vision and where you're going before you say yes, I'm going to build a company around you. Because
like we said in our previous podcast about having a blueprint and knowing your financials and knowing your client, those are all optimal things to have, but the point of it is to mitigate your risk. Yeah. And when you're looking for this person, you may not be able to, like when you brought me on, there wasn't a runway of a lot of money, but you knew me, you knew my family, we'd had relationships, so you mitigated your risk by bringing on somebody that you knew very well. Yeah. Right. And so I think you used what you had to be able to decrease the risk. And I think as you grow, you get to that optimal point where we have been fortunate to be with Jared number 2 of saying, you have minimal experience, but we're okay with that for what you bring to the table. And we have the time, the management to focus on that person and help develop it. Yeah. And the finances to say, it's okay if he's not making money right now, because what we're doing is we're allowing that person to adapt to the specific policies, principles of how we deliver our product to our clients, so that he can be that thing.
Yeah, we only hire someone who we see can retire with us.
That's right.
We only hire someone that we say, okay, can I see this guy here in 20 years or girl, right? Will they be here in 20 years from now? If so, that's one of our boxes that we check. Yeah. Something else talking about the front end hiring also is we preach you got to have a long runway of money. You got to be able to burn money for 3 to 6 months. We talk a lot about that. In total,
that's not real life.
Total
sometimes.
Honesty, when I brought you on, I didn't have that. I was job to job, paycheck to paycheck. I had an opportunity. It was a risky hire for me. Any hire is a risk. I mitigated some of those risks. One of the ways I did not mitigate that risk is I didn't have a bundle of cash in the bank. Yeah. There were a few months in the beginning that you came on and you were making more money than I was making. Yeah. You had a salary base with potential to grow on that, and for me it was like, well, I got to pay him, got to feed him first, because that's our agreement. And I was living on credit cards occasionally, right? Yep. And so again, I took a bigger risk by doing that versus having money in the bank. The risk paid off, but it's okay to take more risks. You just got to know that you're taking it. Am I okay with taking this risk and the outcome that comes at the end of this?
And that might be with that statement, that might be a really good thing to process through. In my current state, what are the possible risks, and which ones are acceptable for me to roll the dice on, and which ones are not. And if you can determine that, and you can determine, you know what, I can't risk money. I don't have the money, or I can't risk my clients. Then figure out what you need to do to safeguard those things, because you need to make the hire. The only way that you're going to grow and develop is to make that hire. So figuring out, all right, what are the risks of making that hire in my current status, and where are the places that I am not willing to give and not willing to roll the dice
and
on.
When are you going to pull the ripcord?
Correct.
Right. How many months can I go on my credit card before I got to fire Jared? Right. That was kind of one of my things of, I can do this for
that wasn't in my contract.
No, it wasn't. But it's one of those things of 3 to 4 months into this, if I'm still borrowing from my credit card to make this isn't working, make my rent payment, then it's not going to work, right? And so it was one of those things of, I know when I'm going to run out, but worst case scenario in this hire, I let him go at month 4. It stinks. I'm back to square one. He's out of a job. But I've got some credit card debt, but I have a track record of clients that are happy with me, and I'm going to continue and work my way out of that.
That's a really good thought. That's a really not only having a plan for the front end of how to make the right decision, how to find the right person, how to do it with as minimal risk as possible, but also saying there's a possibility this doesn't work out. And you and I've had this many times where we should have pulled the ripcord. And we let it roll, and we let it roll, and we let it roll, hoping,
committed.
We're pot committed. We paid all this money, and we were hoping maybe it'll turn a corner, and it cost us more and more and more. So that's actually a really good thought to process all the way through. Just logistics, money, finances. If it gets to here, I can't go any further.
What's the ideal that we get to, and what's the minimal, right? If I hire a new person on, I say, okay, they should be up and running in 4 to 5 months, and we're at month 8. All right, so what do we have to get to by month 12 to keep you or let you go, right?
Would you keep that information to yourself as the owner, or would you share that with that person of like, hey, here's where we have a 5-month runway?
Both. So what I would do is I would not give a end date of the end of the runway, because that's like this grim reaper standing there. But what I would do is say, hey, here are the 5 areas that you need to improve on. We're going to look at this in a month. I need you to look at these 4 things, these 3 things, whatever it is, and say, if you can achieve these, because if you can't achieve these, we're going to be making money. I got no problems. It's a failure to launch in these areas that's causing me not to be able to continue with you. And so every single time someone has been let go at our company, it's been you chose for us to let you go, right? We have always spelled out, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to change in order for us to be able to keep you.
A actual tangible action items list.
Yes. And so saying this is what needs to happen for you to change, that's a conversation we have monthly starting month 3, right? It's the review, it's the constant feedback in a positive way, but of, hey, Jared, okay, so this, we're in month 3. I'm really expecting you. I want you to have 2 crews up and running by yourself, and I want you to run, of those 2 crews, one of those jobs by yourself. Do you think you can do that? That's our goal for the end of this month. And so we set those goals, and we look at them, and we say, okay, this is how we're going to do that. And then at the end of the month, we can say, hey, we had written down, and you didn't find an additional crew, so you're behind on that. So let's pick that up next month, right? And so you get these attainable goals that you're tracking, to where if they're missing those goals every single month, they're not going to be long-term hire for you. You got to cut your losses.
I think also, unless they're a substantial owner in the company, the level of stress of knowing my finances are only going to stretch for 6 months. That's not their responsibility to carry that. They've got enough stress of, I got to learn this job and be successful with it. And like you said, having that grim reaper out there, it's like that's on the ownership level to kind of carry on your shoulders. I know this, and it's my job to lead this person to success by monthly or weekly or whatever tangible goals that if they're achieved, this doesn't matter. That 6-month goal, because we'll be making the money.
And when you're looking at who to hire, it's someone with the mindset that can understand that and grasp that.
Yeah.
That you can say, listen, here are the 7 things. I need you to look inside, right? Are you self-realizing to be able to look and say, okay, why am I not achieving these 3 things? And if it's a knowledge, let's get you the knowledge. If it's self-fear, let's get you some counseling, right? We pay for counseling for our employees, right? If it's I just don't have the crews, great. Me and you are going to call 30 crews between now and next Friday. I'm going to do 15, you're going to do 15, let's go, right? And if you can find 15 crews to call. Now, you're not going to have them all answer the phone,
right?
But it's figuring out why you can't achieve these things, and I'm going to support you in helping achieve these things between now and X date. You need to hire someone that can do that, though, right? Someone that can see them, that can look in a mirror and say, you know what? I'm really struggling with organization here. I'm really struggling with keeping up with the software and inputting data. I'm really struggling with finding crews. Whatever it is, I need you to be able to identify that, because as your boss, I can help you solve that problem. But I can't identify your issues and solve them for you.
Well, and I think I would say that was one of the skill sets that you had, that you not only you helped with the plan, but you made it available to come in and say that and not feel like I was going to get condemned or whatever. It was like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't know how to do it. I can't figure it out. Can you help me? Whatever. But it was always available for you, and I think that's a big thing as a manager of a person, to be open for that, to allow somebody, because as an employee, 90% of the time, unless it's not been made clear, they're not going to come back to you and give you the real feedback you want anyways.
Yeah. Well, I can't give that feedback to you unless I have a structured plan that we are trying to follow, right?
Correct.
Unless we've got that system that ProServe Alliance helps you build. Hey, unless we have that,
plug, small one.
Yeah, but unless you have that built out, I don't know how to give you feedback. I don't know what our achievables are. I don't know where we're going. I don't know how the job is supposed to be done and being done wrong or being done right. Really, most of the guys in our industry, when I'm giving you feedback, is like, well, I wouldn't have done that, you idiot, right? And so it's you don't know what's in my brain, and I'm expecting you to know what's in my brain, right? And so because we had systems starting to be built out and processes being built out, I was able to reference that back to you and say, hey, listen, you're not doing this, right? You're not emailing the client every time we say we're going to be doing it. You're not doing this. And so that allows it to not be me as a bad guy or you as an idiot, but it allows it to be, hey,
the
here's
process.
We got a common thing that we've agreed on how this is going to happen. So final thoughts, anything?
I think it's good. I like it.
Yeah, I think who to hire is all about the mindset of the person, not just the skill set. I think if I had to sum it up. So that's it for this one. Next week we are going to go into how to hire. We're going to go through interview process, offering jobs. How do we do pay structure around here, and kind of talk through that stuff. Any other questions? ProServeAlliance.com. If you want to see the videos, there's a deeper dive videos. We're kind of talking about our experience. ProServeAlliance.com. There's an educational button on the top menu bar. Click on education and videos.
All the videos. And
you can see all of our videos about how to hire, who to hire, when to hire, and all that stuff. It's already all out there. Next week, we'll cover it.
You can email Clark or myself at Clark Turner at ProServe Alliance, or Jared Flow, F as in Frank, LOWE, at ProServeAlliance.com.
Yep. Let us know. We'd love to talk to you.
See you next time.
All right. Bye.